Tartan Tastebuds is the show from a state of mind that samples those taste buds associated with bonnie Scotland. I'm Paul John Dykes, and this week I am joined by Rosa Zambonini, who introduced Glam into Scottish politics as an SNP councillor. Will Rosa enjoy the Scottish cuisine? Let's join her on Tartan Tastebuds to find out. Rosa Zambonini, welcome to Tartan Tastebuds.
Thank you.
This is the show that tests your Tartan Tastebuds.
Right.
So shall we begin?
Yes, I'm all for it.
First dish.
All for it.
You've got a choice.
Yes.
You've got a sweet tooth.
I know immediately what it will be.
All right.
Very sweet tooth. Right, I'm going for this, a snowball.
The
Is that what they
the
call
messy
it?
option.
A snowball. Well, why not?
It
Is
a
it still
snowball.
called a snowball?
It is.
Right, okay.
Now you wire into that. Why do you think it is that Scottish people have such a sweet tooth?
Because it's just fabulous. Sugar is just wonderful. Now, disclaimer, in moderation, like everything else, but I don't know, we've got amazing sweet dishes. I mean, who doesn't love a macaroon?
True. There should actually be a macaroon in there. And 6 million of these are sold every single week. So we do have a sweet tooth, that's for sure. When you're a mother, how do you deal with that with your kids? Do you just let them wire in?
Well, excuse me, I'd go for the messiest option. Well, everything in moderation. I'm really lucky. Neither of my kids, I say kids, they're 18, 16. Neither, I know, it's shocking, but neither of them have really mega sweet tooth. But I was never one of these parents that was like, you're not having that, you're not having that, because it's like everything. You want it more.
Yep.
You say you can't have it, but everything in moderation, like it.
Absolutely. We're a nation who enjoy sweet foods and sweet drinks, and hopefully you'll have a few during this conversation. Talk to us firstly about your upbringing. You've got an Italian surname.
Yeah, my dad was from Italian descent. His grandfather came over before the war from Barga. He likes to think he's very Italian. He sounds like he's from Wisha, like me. Don't speak Italian, but definitely rooted in it, definitely. And actually, I think even more so since Brexit's happened, I think it's given me a sense of, I want to know what it was that I was so keen to hang on to. And that way, like, I used to always say, and we would go out to Italy for holidays when I was younger, and then after Italia 90, we didn't go for years because Florida became the thing, and we were all saving up every second year to go to Florida. But then, after Brexit, I thought, I'm going to go. I was seriously unwell for a while, and thought, I'm going to go out and see if I can reset. And went out there, and then I just fell back in love with it. And my mother is as Scottish as they come. She's wee and short and ginger and crabbit, but very sweet. She's really crabbit. But she's very sweet, and she's great, and came from a mixed background. She was Protestant, he was a Catholic, and I grew up just feeling like I was just part of Scotland. I didn't feel like I belonged to one group or another, religious or, you know, even race. My parents were always extremely inclusive, which was unusual in the 80s because a lot of my friends were, like I had a friend and her dad was in the Orange Lodge in the Masonic Hall. He was a Tory, not that there's anything wrong with being a Tory if that's your thing. That's a bit wrong, but he was a Tory, and I would go to their house and every party was in the Orange Hall, every birthday party was in, and I just thought that was, you know, normal for them. But I really did not understand it because it's not how I grew up. I grew in this really odd household of mixed acceptance.
Did that open your kind of mind to diversity and inclusion yourself, though, because it was natural to you?
Yeah, I think so. I think that knowing that something was odd about my family, so when I was at primary school, I went to a non-denominational school, but I think what I realised was that at this school, everybody was slightly, we only go to church, we don't go to chapel, and we don't, not everyone, but a lot of them, we don't really like them, and we don't like Celtic fans, and we fall out with the people at this Catholic school, and, you know, you would go by with friends, and you would see the purple blazers, because that was the Catholic school, and people would be like, what's this? You know, and there was this change, and then I realised that somehow that's not good. It just was intrinsically in me. My mum also grew up in real poverty in Scotland. She grew up in Motherwell under the shadow of the Craig. My mum remembers it going up, and she also remembers it coming down.
Right, yep.
But her father fought in the war. My parents are older. Fought in the war. You know, left his job as a butcher to go and work in the Craig because they were enticed in. They needed workers. Drank a lot of his money. Loved his family, but she came from real poverty. So I realised that actually I had this job to do somehow, because my father had this wealth and was a Catholic, and she was and I just thought, doesn't need to be like this. Excuse me. Sorry. And so that was the way. That's why you should not have these. It's not the sugar. It's
They
the
said you were going to
coconut.
finish it.
Oh, okay.
That's all right. Take your time.
So yeah, that's when I realised that, you know, that, and they got together, these two people from different religious and different economic backgrounds, and made a lovely life. So why can't more people do that?
This is the strange kind of dichotomy with Scotland, though, because we have always welcomed immigrants, you know, but there is an issue in Scotland with inclusion between Protestants, Catholics. There is a real divide. How do you describe that to someone who isn't part of the kind of goldfish bowl?
Well, you know, it's funny, I was out campaigning for an election just recently, and a young guy came down, I think he's 21, 22, and we were in a part of Wishaw, and it was for a by-election actually for Westminster. And I put a leaflet through the door for my party, which is the SNP, but it's a personal thing, not just that I work there. Put the leaflet through and this guy came belting out, he's like, "We are the 55! I don't need your leaflet." And the guy for Dundee was like, this isn't happening. He was like collapsing the floor, and I was just like, "I'll ram your leaflet." I was so not bothered by it, because I'm so used to it. But this guy just from Dundee, who's just up the road slightly, was just like, "Oh my God, I've never seen anything." He's so sweet, but he was like, "I've never seen anything like this." And then I realised actually it is a Scotland-wide problem, definitely more located within the Central Belt. And I do think the difference is, you know, people talk about education in schools. Having Catholic schools is not an issue. Every report that's ever come out has said it isn't. But you're educated in your home. So if you go to school and they're doing all this work and call it out in other organisations, and you're learning, well, it doesn't matter what anyone is, but you come home and Dad's, as soon as you get a boyfriend, what school's he go to? What's his name?
What fit does he kick with?
Exactly. That's the kind of questions. So it's been passed down for so long now that I don't know how we fix it. Because the funny thing is, and I always say this to my partner who's a Rangers fan and probably a unionist, and we're so different, but we talk about it a lot. And I said, what gets me is that you all work together. Like the guys, we own a property firm, and they're out in the vans, and they just love each other and they're pals. And it's the same guys that I hear using language, and I'm like that, "Oh, jeez, oh." And it's almost like not meant, but said anyway.
Yeah, it's part of the parlance. It's almost acceptable among certain people. Now, I think about Italy. I've only ever been once, but I think about style, Rosa. I mean, is that a stereotype, or is that just the way it is? There's a style to the way they dress.
They're just fabulous at everything they do.
Yep.
I mean, can you not? Is this not like maybe a bit? But mostly we're pretty fabulous. And I think that I get my humour and my good nature from the Scottish side.
Right.
And I think I get my good taste from the Italian side. Sometimes I have good taste.
It's a good mix.
Sometimes people say I look like Becky Lynch. I'm not judging myself though. I'm 40 this year. But yeah, Italians they're so stylish, and they're so, you think this is good, but I'm an Italian food girl. Like, I love my Scottish food and I love all of it, and we'll go through it today. But I mean, Italian food, even their food's stylish, isn't it?
And when you watch, you mentioned Italian 90, even when you watch the footballers, you know. I remember being in Milan and seeing the Cops, and even the Cops looked good. And then you compare it to the Scottish Cops, I think they're winning that battle as well.
And they love it. They know they're stylish. So when you're out there, they know they're fabulous, and they like to dress fabulous. What I love is, I was in Lucca, the town that I go to quite a lot. I was sitting on a wall, I was watching this old pensioner. She was going by on a bike, she looked rough as anything, and she had the biggest Louis Vuitton bag I've ever seen. And what I realised is, for them, they don't give up in style either. So if they're of a different size or a different height or their skin tone's different, they don't care, they still dress fabulously. And it's not like it's cheap. When you go out there, you don't go and think, well, there's a Primark, they can get nice things and put it together. Actually, it's quite expensive to clothes shop out there. But they like to be well-groomed, and their politics are crap, but they look beautiful. Yeah,
we'll get on to politics. One final thing then, when we're talking about humour, you says you get your humour from your mother's side, your Scottish humour. What is it about the Scottish humour, and who do you look at in terms of comedy? Who's your favourite comedians in Scotland? There's been so many, eh?
I remember growing up with Dorothy Paul, and she's like, a lot of people wouldn't know who she is. I mean, so funny, so natural. I think the thing about Scottish humour is its warmth. It's so relatable, and there's been a lot about Billy Connolly on the now because of his health and his age. And when I watched it, it's his everyone can relate to him, can't they? It's the humour's not just about one ethnic group or about football, it's about life. Scottish comedians tend to give you a wee bit of their life, don't they? It radiates out them. And I like Janie Godley. She gets such a really, I was going to swear, a really hard time on social media, and it's terrible. And her humour's not for everybody, but it is for me, and I think that's the thing. My mum and dad love her because she's so funny and they watch it and they can relate. And like Nicolas Sturgeon said herself, Janie Godley got a message over. She did. People were watching it, and things that the government couldn't get through, she was getting through. But I did like, and I like Elaine C. Smith. I like the women of Scottish comedy, and I think they're often because Billy was such a big, massive player, and others who are like Kevin Bridges, they're so, but the women have been funny too.
Absolutely.
And that's not just a famous, that is a fact. They are so funny, and some of the writers in some of these shows and Still Game, they're women who are involved in the arse. And I think Scottish people are funny in general. I think when you come from this area and it's like the weather's not always great, and they're quite good at taking the mick out of themselves, aren't they, Scottish people?
Yeah.
And that's sometimes to the point where it can be difficult because you're saying, don't deprecate yourself so much, you're fabulous. But yeah, we're a pretty funny bunch.
Scottish humour, Italian style. You ready for another dish?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I didn't finish this one.
That's fine.
It was big.
Don't force yourself.
My mouth is big, but...
And dish number 2.
Oh, get in.
Now,
Yes.
talk to me about this as a hangover cure. Is that a myth? Does it work?
See, I don't know. My hangovers are weird though. I never get headachy or sick. I do feel like nobody loves me. Everybody would tell you that.
Do you get the fear?
Oh my God, yes, and it's getting worse. Like, it is, I drink the red wine, that's my drink, I like a red wine. Maybe text my staff telling them I love them, and text my boss telling them that I'm going to quit in 2 years because I'm going to be a millionaire, and then the next day I wake up and I'm like, oh, I don't feel sick, no headache, I do feel like nobody loves me.
So do people just think that's Rosa on the red wine, or...?
No, because I'm not a big drinker, so that's a weird thing, because a lot of people say Scots are big drinkers. I'm actually not a big drinker, so when I'm in the red wine, it's either, oh, what's happened to Rosa, she's on the red wine, or it's, oh, something's happened to wee Rosa, she's on the red wine. You know, it's either something really good or something, and they're like that, what's happened? Either that, or my partner's got this really bad habit, he's saying, well, we have a red wine, because he does like a wee drink, so I'm like, you need to watch what you're doing, don't drink too much of that. But sometimes if I need something new, he'll have a few glasses and he'll be like, you want any wee shoes? You've worked hard this week.
It's a tactical drink.
Right, it's
yes.
a tactical drink. And then the next day,
good job.
I have new shoes, but I feel like I want to phone everyone in my phone book and ask if they still love me. So that's where we're at.
It's a balance. So, hangover
this
cure,
one.
not so sure. How do you describe it? If you were to, for example, describe this to somebody in Italy who's never tasted Iron Brew.
What a good question. Like, how do you describe it? Delicious? Metallic, maybe I would say metallic. Because I think if you were, like, if I was drinking it abroad, I would think original Lucozade or some kind of weird orange diluted. I don't know. And actually, I would love to know how. Where I live in Wishaw, there used to be a bars factory,
right?
And they would make it, and we would never steal any from out the back ever, very often. And I always wondered. You know, you used to say made in Scotland from girders. Is it a fact? Is it a myth? Does anyone know? Do you know?
No one knows.
I mean, okay, let's see.
That's maybe the metallic taste that you
but
get in the back
that's why I
of
think
your
it came. You know, where is it from? No one knows. And I know that people have tried to reverse engineer the recipe, and there's nothing like it.
Can't be done. Just don't spill it, because you can never get it out.
Out the carpet.
Let's talk about politics.
Oh, okay.
So, were you in a politicised household growing up?
No, not that my parents voted. I think, I'm not sure how they voted, so they weren't extremely vocal. I think my father voted Tory because he was, which was odd in our area with the Ravenscraig and stuff, but he was in business, and he got into business and insurance and never he didn't get a lot of encouragement, and I think at that point, before the Thatchers kind of, or when he first started to vote, I think he thought that was what you did when you were trying to work hard and get up a ladder, and so voted that way. And then obviously when Ravenscraig shut down, even though my father didn't work there, he saw the repercussions, people try to cash in. That's when you could get a policy for he tells a story that one day he went to this woman's house and she had a rug, because the insurance man used to come to your door, collect money. And this woman would say to him, she says, "Oh, Jim, I've burnt the rug." My father's like, "Look, can I pay it?" Because it was your life, everything was one policy. So he paid out, and managed to get paid out £20, which must have been massive for the woman to get a rug replaced. The next week, he went to the next door on the same street. The woman was like, "Oh, Jim, I've burnt my rug." And it was the same rug. And this happened all the way down. And he said that, you know, they paid out because people were so desperate when the Craig shut. So they were always voters, not very overtly political. I did modern studies in high school, and I always had this thing where I should be able, I've got more of an opinion in that. I think more than that, but never really had a vocal one. I got divorced at a really young age. I was on my own with 2 kids. And then I remember the yes-no vote. I was a yes voter. Not like rabid or out there. I just knew that we could do maybe better. It wasn't actually until after the yes-no vote, I joined the SNP, but I got interested. There was the election in 2015, the general election. And in our area, I decided to help just because I joined the SNP and I wanted to see how it worked. And then we absolutely wiped Labour off the mark. And then I realised that actually it won't always be Labour forever. Because where I grew up, everybody thought it will be Labour forever. That's what everybody thought. And then I realised it wouldn't be Labour forever. I was at an SNP meeting where Humza Yousaf, who is now the Cabinet Secretary for Health, was there, and he was speaking, and we'd just got a newly elected MP in Motherwell and Wishaw, which was a huge deal to kick out somebody like Frank Roy, who had been incumbent and worked with Tony Blair during the Iraq War. And they were sitting there saying, "Oh, she's an MP now, she's going to resign as a councillor." So I'm at this meeting listening, and they're saying, "We need a new candidate, and they need to be this, and, you know, poverty and this and that." And I put my hand up and I said, "How would you all know what it's like to be a single mum? How would you know what it's like to live in like a scheming wisher and try to manage your messages and be in home bargains and having to put half it back? That is what my life is like. And if you're looking for a candidate, and it's only for local council, and it's a sort of, you know, what a lot of people see as entry level into politics, why not look for someone who knows what it's like, whose kids are using the schools, who are paying their council tax, and that's when I got into politics. It was almost an accident.
But see, when you get into it, do you then see that there's issues with misogyny, sexism?
Yeah, I mean...
Do they still exist?
They don't just exist, they're totally patriarchal, like they're embedded into it. And people say to me all the time, like my girls will say that work with me and that are not in politics, they'll say, "Well, actually, we've got a First Minister and she's a woman and she's got a gender balanced cabinet." But to get there, we still need to use all these mechanisms. We shouldn't be there, you know, so that's a big barrier. Another big barrier is things like women like me who were lone parents, so I couldn't have run because how would I be in Edinburgh 3 days a week? So that's an issue. But when I was actually elected, it was just insane. The councillors at North Lanarkshire, now these are old Labour councillors who have been about for, I mean, they were there when the Craig was built, and I would go into work, and I remember one day I was bending over a desk to I had trousers on, like heels, but I was bending over a desk to plug in and one of the Labour councillors said, "Can I have a word with you?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." He's like, "You're a lovely lassie, and we really like you, but you need to stop like climbing over the desks." And I was like, "I had to put a plug in." He's like, "It's too distracting for everybody." And I was like, "What the fuck?" Was it? It wasn't in my acrobatics.
You're allowed to swear. This is a Scottish show.
That's all right, just in case.
It's a prerequisite.
My mother watches it, are you going to deal with her?
You could bleep it.
Well, that's all right then. But and you know, that was the thing. And then obviously, I mean, I'm quite open now. I faced really serious harassment at Holyrood. I felt like I went there, and my boss was like, "So like, you're good at your job. You were a brilliant councillor. I've applied for a job with him," and he was just totally like, he didn't notice what I looked like or anything like that. He just wanted to know what I would do, but other people did. You know, I had, and it's been documented in the news, ministers sliding into my DMs and I never did anything about it at the time because I'm not from politics. I went to uni, but I didn't finish. I didn't feel like I was one of them. So I thought, well, actually most people, there was no Me Too, no Weinstein, no, nothing like that. And I remember it all happening, and it was happening with more than just him and other MSPs, and my boss was brilliant. He was like, my boss is quite gamey. He was like, I'm going to go out their fucking door. I'm going to their fucking office. And I was like, oh no, there'll be a government crisis. There was no me. So then I took seriously ill, as I mentioned earlier, went to Italy, and when I was out there, the whole Weinstein case broke, and everyone was all over it, Scottish politicians, everybody, this is terrible, we've got to do something about it. And what happened was I saw someone who had harassed me tweeting about it quite, like, you know, he was quite, like, he was very vocal. And I just thought, you're a cheeky bastard.
What a hypocrite.
Aye, like, really. And it really got to me. So I wrote a blog. I didn't mention anyone, just saying, I've seen so many, and I don't have the piece anymore. And just really went over every councillor, every staffer, every MSP, every MP who'd slid into my DMs, slid into my actual parliamentary inbox. And I wrote about it in the abstract. Now, to be fair, the party then came to me and said, who is it? Tell us. No one in British politics since the Me Too movement had come forward. And something inside of me said, you have to say something, because if you don't, this might pass and nobody will be held to account and everything will go back to the way it was. So I did. What I didn't expect was it to quite go the way it did. The party were great. I had evidence, so someone lost their job as a minister but stayed as an MSP. But the knock-on effect of that has been things like the Salmond inquiry and other things. And well, he was found guilty, not guilty, or not proven, or not guilty. Well, that's what happened. He himself admitted to behaving inappropriately. And I notice a lot of people are like, well, he just behaved inappropriately. Well, I feel like saying, well, what if he behaved inappropriately with your missus? You'd go and fucking batter him. Like, seriously. So then when I've got young girls who work for me across other sectors, I think, do I want to put, you know, I'm always saying to them, vote girls and get involved. Would I put them in front of that? I'm not sure. And that's when I realised, actually, are where we need to be. Yeah, we've got Nicolas Sturgeon there and there. We've got Shona Robison back in the cabinet and others, and brilliant female ministers. But if I'm thinking I wouldn't let my daughter work anywhere near there or in that industry, then we still have a way to go.
Speaks volumes. There still needs to be a change in culture.
Yeah, and there does, and it's funny because how people handle it. People who were in politics and they heard about it, they were all like going down it, and this is where Scottish people are so funny. They were all like, oh, well, we need to report it, and we go through all these inquiries. And then my friends who I told, who were nothing to do with politics, they were just like, I'll fucking batter him. I'll drive to where he lives. I'll just kill him. I'm just going to speak to him. I mean, and you know, there was something about that was actually more reassuring. The fact that somebody was like, that's bang out the order, by the way. That felt reassuring to me because they were just like, it's bang out the order, end of. Whereas on the other side of it was all like, we have to have discussions and we have to have sit-down groups. And I was just like, just tell these idiots not to do it again.
Yeah.
That's it. Just tell them, make the example. And it's been hard. And for a while I was like, I'm never doing this again. I am never going for elected. I'll stay with James till the end, but I'm going to run next year.
Good.
So I'm going right back into it again. But this time I think I'm more equipped. So if I'm also getting older as well, so you're a wee bit wiser, and you know that when somebody says don't plug your computer in, you just ram the plug somewhere else then. Like, you know, back then I was so like, oh my God, they're right. And I've brought this climbing over a desk. Oh my God, what was I thinking? I don't think like that anymore.
No, is there room for glam in Scottish politics?
Well, clearly. no, I mean, there's room for everybody. This is the thing. Like, this is what I don't understand. So the thing that I'm hit with a lot is, look at her lips, look at her hair, look at all of that. But what's wrong with that? So are we saying to all these young guys who wear skinny jeans and Balenciagas and all these young girls that love the Kardashians and get their lashes done, are we saying you don't have a place because you don't look like how we think you should look? You're distracting when you're putting a plug in. There should be a place, and there are, and it shouldn't really matter what. It's funny though, because if you see a handsome politician, there's like Kennedy and Justin Trudeau in Canada, they're always seen as charismatic, and it's all part of the package. Whereas when a woman's seen like that, I think it's almost like, well, she's not that clever, she's so self-absorbed, she's so into how she looks, she's so, and all those things are true. I do like to take care of how I look, I do, but that's all about my mental health. If I feel control of this, I feel control of this. And I think we should be able to say to young people, especially young people, you can look like however you want. If that's like Kim Kardashian, a pair of Yeezys, not my cup of tea, you still have a place. I've got hairdressers that work for me and they're bringing in thousands to this economy every month. Thousands and thousands. And, you know, I maybe talk to colleagues and they'll be like, imagine them talking about this, imagine them talking about that. And I think they work so hard, create jobs in this community, provide a service to the community, and their voice matters just as much. And these girls ask so many questions. I'm not sure they would ask them if it wasn't me they were asking them to, and there's something wrong with that.
I think people in the last year, Rosa, have realised just how important hairdressers are. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, your hair's nice.
Thank you.
It doesn't look like it's from the 90s.
Late
Early
90s,
noughties.
early 90s. We'll have that.
Very nice, I like it.
Ready for another dish?
Yes.
Right, you ready for the third dish?
Yes, I am.
Now,
This is exciting. Oh.
it is exciting.
Ho ho.
And I'm going to have to ask you, is it obvious what it is from here?
I think it's a black pudding supper. Well, part of the, is it black pudding or batter sausage? Just
You'll need to make that
I've got a knife
reveal.
and fork.
You'll need to make that
Do I need to
reveal.
use the knife and fork?
You can do it as you please.
Oh, it's warm and everything. Oh. My mother is not watching this. I've decided, never mind the swearing. Oh, it's haggis.
It's haggis.
I could eat that whole thing.
Hey, listen,
That'll
if you
work.
want to eat that, you crack on. How do you enjoy your haggis? Is it from the chippy or is it the traditional Burns night dish?
I enjoy my sausage any old way. But
Your mum's not watching this, is she?
no, actually I'm not sure if my partner now will either. Your sausage, darling, just your sausage alone. No, nobody else's sausage, you don't want to be eating that. No, I like traditional haggis. I like it with old cream sauce, potatoes, turnips, and I love it. I just think I think people are put off by what they think is in it, but I just love it.
No, the taste speaks for itself. Have you ever met anybody who thinks that it's an actual thing that runs around the Highlands?
Yes, I was married to an American. He was a nice person, by the way. Well, I had to clarify that, do you know what I mean, because he was American. Married to an American, lived out there, and I worked for Disney at the time. It was a big Millennium party thing, and I was representing Scotland. And all Americans ask, either they ask how it's made or how you catch it, and I'm like, are people serious? But they
You
are.
just play with that, you just go with it.
No, I was always, I think I've like got this outrage in me because I'd be like, sorry? And obviously I was like 19, so I'd be like, that is like so stupid. Because that's what annoyed me, was more that they were so thick than the actual question. But when we were there, we did now and again do samples for the Americans and let them try it. A lot of them, it was the spice that put them off, believe it or not, the heat, and that surprised me, but I love it.
You enjoying that one?
Yes.
Quality. We've spoken about politics, let's talk about Scottish independence. You voted yes.
Yes.
SNP for you. How inspirational is Nicola Sturgeon?
I think she's inspirational to lots of people for lots of reasons. I think there's this idea, though, that she has a messiah complex amongst supporters like me, which isn't true. She's human and she makes mistakes. The thing about Nicola Sturgeon is she is just a real person. We were talking about Scottish comedians earlier and why they are so beloved all over the world. Nicola Sturgeon's beloved. I mean, I see people at the Parliament coming and going all the time. They all want to meet her. You can see even people of other parties, Tories, Labour, whatever, Greens, and they've got guests, and you can tell even the guests want to meet her.
Yeah.
And it's because she is so relatable. She's also super hardworking, and I don't say that because I'm a big SNP staffer or voter. I just see her at work, and she is always at work. She works every weekend. I don't know actually how she does it, and I think people see that. What I could never be is on her social media. The abuse she takes is like nothing I have ever seen for any human being on this planet.
It's grim.
It is. I mean, her, I think, Hums is a close second, if I'm honest. But independence is coming. I mean, well, at least the vote is. But I think it's coming, and I think now more than ever, it's going to be time. Some yes voters wish it was quicker. For me, I really think we need to have recovery, at least some recovery, because I own businesses, so I do want a wee bit of that there. But yeah, it is coming. Like, please come, please come.
Well, my question always is, will you see it in your lifetime? You clearly think we
Yeah.
will. How close do you think it is?
I think it's the closest, if it's not now, it will not be in my lifetime. I would put it that way. I think that, you know, well, what was 2014, so we're now 7 years on from that, and I think that's enough time that it's not just about converting soft no's or maybes. We've got a generation of young people who are coming up who don't want to be under Tory Brexit. You know, they just don't want that. And a lot of older people who voted against it, who sadly are no longer with us, but even some pensioners, I think, were so gutted about what happened with Brexit and how that was handled. And I hate when politicians are on telly talking about it, because folk at home are going, I don't really care about Brexit, it doesn't affect me. But in the communities, when I'm out and about in places like Castlemilk, where my constituency that I work is, people are not having funding for their jelly bean cafe or for their school things. And now they're beginning to realise, actually, it wasn't just about going on holiday or folk coming to live here and taking their jobs, or whatever people thought that's what it was about. People in the communities across Scotland are actually seeing the wider impact. I also think that Labour are so inept. They are so inept. I mean, I've got friends in the Labour Party who, if you're watching, I love you. But I do love them, and they're good people and they want social change. But without taking Scotland, you won't take Westminster back right now. They cannot take Westminster without Labour MPs in Scotland, and that's just not going to happen anytime soon. So if Scotland wants a different path, which I think it deserves, and I do think it deserves it, I think it will be soon. So my boss and I had a chat. I'm thinking that there will be an announcement 22, or end of this year, and a vote maybe 22, 23. That's how soon I see the vote.
See, when you look at the way that the Tory government's dealt with Brexit and the COVID outbreak, you think a lot of people are saying, let's take ownership of this for ourselves, because that has been mismanaged, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing was just dreadful. I mean, don't get me wrong, there was at times when I thought, you know what, Rishi Sunak, he seemed to get a wee bit of holding things in, and I think, no, it's all smoke and mirrors. And did you watch the Cummings, last week Cummings was on the telly and he was giving his evidence, and at first I thought, oh, that's interesting, and I thought, you're a prick, like, you were part of that. Like, see, if I'd have been in there, I'd have been going, I either need to walk away because I'm going to be... He said that he stayed, didn't he, because he wanted to save lives. And then you saw Matt Hancock and they were saying, oh, why didn't you watch the cup? And he said, it's saving lives. And I saw somebody in Scotland saying, you're not fucking Spider-Man. So I was deceased, because that is the truth. That's how farcical this has been. You know, they believe that they saved lives when really we had the biggest death toll, and if not in Europe, the planet. I think what's happened in Scotland, you saw it at the last election, people realise that if you want something different here, the SNP are the way to go. It will just be making sure those same people realise that what happened with Brexit, the uncertainty and all of that, will not happen. And I'm not such an ardent independence. Like, there's a lot of independence supporters want it at all costs, and they just want it now. But working in the constituency for an MSP who's with the SNP, they want us to get their houses sorted. They don't want to be living with damp. They don't want high drug death tolls. They don't want their young people to be unemployed. So we need to be doing that at the same time. That's why I think it's important that we recover from COVID, because people want that. If you say to them, look, your lives are just going to be as shit as they are now, but it will be independent, people will not want that. They won't vote for it. But I do think I think sending the Royals up was like great, wasn't it? Because like everybody was just like, now we want it even more. Like, we can't go on our holidays wearing a tartan skirt, so it is coming. It is coming. I quite like a tartan skirt.
Oh, why not?
I know, I'd pull it off, I think.
Absolutely. Would you like another dish?
Oh, yes.
Are you ready for another Scottish dish, Rosa?
Yes, come on.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
This is hot. This is hot.
Oh, ooh.
Now, I wasn't aware this was Scottish, but it is
I didn't
indeed
think it was.
a Scottish drink.
I didn't think that.
And I've got to say, you know, I think back to times on the terraces drinking this and getting a heat from it.
Like,
have you ever done that?
yeah, but no, usually, because you know earlier you were asking about sweet tooth, I would want like a hot chocolate. I'd take my father, he would get me a hot chocolate, and he'd have a bovril, but it smelled like beef soup, which is kind of what it is.
It shouldn't work, but it does. Beef in a cup, are you going to sample it?
Let's go. Like, how did they come up with it?
I don't know. It must have been a mistake.
It is good though, eh?
It is good. And the smell reminds me of the old terrace culture.
What's even in it? Do they say it? There's beef broth, barley, and bones.
And bones, brilliant.
Beef bones.
Only in Scotland.
Yes, beef bones.
So, people think, Rosa, if you're from Scotland, you support Celtic or Rangers. It's a popular misconception.
Very.
Who's your team?
Motherwell.
Local team?
Yeah, local team. All my life, I just love them. Had to say, not had a season ticket for the last couple of years, been a bit difficult with work commitments, but yeah, there's something magical about supporting your local team. I mean, it is, because when the highs are high, they're so fucking high. I mean, they are, and the lows are low and they're plentiful, but there's just something about that community feel that I just think. My partner's a Rangers fan, and I went to quite a few of the European games before COVID, and the atmosphere was quite electric, and I could feel it. But I was just like, I don't know the woman sitting next to me. I don't know who she is. Whereas when you're at Motherwell games, you know everybody. Yeah. And especially when you travel away games, you're just like that, who's getting lifted today? And then like, I'm telling their ma before they even get home. There is something about that community feel in a community club. And I just love the club. It doesn't really matter about on the field, thankfully, no. But I do.
And when the successes come, you don't take them for granted, do you?
No, you totally, I mean, it's like, you know, you think about cup finals and going to Europe. These are massive occasions for people, and you know, I know it is for the Old Firm as well, and for Celtic fans and Rangers fans and even Aberdeen fans, Hearts, Hibs. For so long, it came so easily, especially to Celtic and Rangers, and for a while Celtic only. But I mean, one of the best games I've been to, or the best two games, do you remember Rangers were due to come up and they got us in the playoffs? And they got us.
How could I forget?
I know, and my best friend, who is also a Motherwell fan, and it's mad, she's a big Motherwell fan as well, she's like, do you want to go? And I was like, I just don't know, because I mean, the thought of them coming up, another club, don't come at me, the thought of Rangers coming up at our going down, because I mean, we hate the Old Firm. Small clubs hate the Old Firm. They don't. It's not like a bitter hate. It's just a wish we could be them type of hate, you know. And my friend said, "Do you want to go?" So we went to Ibrox. The atmosphere was rough going in. You know, you could tell that they really wanted it and needed it. I would say is more. Whereas they needed it because they had to come back. We needed it to survive. At that point, Motherwell might have struggled had they gone down to the lower league. And then, of course, that was the first game we won, and there's that famous kind of video that went round, it's viral, and the Motherwell fans singing at the end because they kept us in and we couldn't go. And then it was a narrow win, and I thought, right, when they come to Fir Park, they'll need to go up a gear. That's what's going to happen. They'll go up a gear, and it just didn't. And honestly, I mean, we played a good game against Celtic, and we helped Rangers out a lot years ago as well. You'll probably remember that.
I'm trying to block that one out, Rosa.
Played for us. So, you know, these moments though, but even, and people say, oh, you just hate Rangers, you just hate Celtic, and it isn't. To be able to stop a club like Celtic coming to win the league on your pitch when the whole world's expecting it, you know, that's a big thing. And so all of these games become our cup finals, you know, surviving against Rangers, that's your cup final, you know. There was a game against Hibs and they were beating us, I can't remember what they were beating us, and then we ended up winning, it was like 7-6, and these kind of coming back, these are the games that, you know, as a Motherwell fan, these are your going to Lisbon, not quite going to Lisbon, but you know what I mean, that's what we live for.
Do you like being an underdog?
Oh, that's a very good question, that's a good question. I don't mind being an underdog, because I think when you're an underdog, the win's all that more sweeter. You know, like politically, right now we're not an underdog in the SNP, so that feels quite good. But actually, there is something about having to fight, and especially in football. Like you want to see your team like coming forward, and when you start seeing like players like that have come through, so Davy Cooper, you know, when players like that come to the kind of end of their career and start coming to your club, it's a magical. I mean, I just love Davy Cooper, but that's a magical experience when you get somebody like McFadden, who starts their career with you, and you can see, and you know they're going to leave, but you know they were your. There's something magical about that, because it doesn't happen all the time for us. We don't get the Larsons, the Gascoignes, the Laudrups, the McStays, the McCoys. They don't come to us, but once in a blue moon they do, and that's incredible. And
you gave us David Turnbull, Rosa, so I've got to thank you for that.
Well, eventually when you wanted to take him.
We've spoken a wee bit about diversity.
Yes.
Would you like to talk about Charlie's journey?
Yeah, of course. Oh, that's nice. It's cool and it's lovely.
It does taste a bit better once it's more palatable when it cools down a wee bit.
Yeah. So Charlie is my oldest child. Quite not a complicated story. Was always different. Was born Wesley and was a boy. got to the age of about third year, and said to me, something's different, started self-harming, and it wasn't what you could call a cry for help, it was really serious stuff, and I was going, what is it? Like, are you gay? Are you, what's wrong? Have you done something really bad? Are you injecting heroin into your eyeballs? Like, what? Like, just tell me, because if you can tell anybody, it's me. There's nobody that's made more mistakes in their life than me, or if it's something, just tell me. And eventually he texted me and said, I think I'm a girl. So we travelled through that process, we got psychologists and the psychologists agreed. And it was a difficult journey because it was quite public. He wanted, she transitioning wanted to support things like the Thai campaign because he found a kind of camaraderie within those organisations, which then went quite viral in public, which was difficult. But now Sins has said, Charlie says, I think I am male, but there are things, maybe sexuality things that are working through. What the journey has taught me is that, you know, to say, oh well, somebody's just gay or somebody's just trans, I'm not actually, I would have said, well, you're either gay, you're straight. What I'm learning is there is a journey to this. And I don't think, and I probably wouldn't have believed in non-binary or anything like that because I didn't know what that is, and that's not what Charlie says he is. But what's interesting is that the psychologist said to me, we grow up thinking mummies love daddies and daddies love mummies. So I like daddies, therefore I must be a mummy. And actually, since this journey's come out, so many sort of gay men or men who are different in a sexual way, or they just don't understand quite who they are. It's the history of you know, the way we teach in schools and the way everything's female to male, mummies, daddies. Even if they're not together, you go to your daddy's house at the weekend. And actually guys like at the Thai campaign are actually trying to normalise what society says is abnormal. But it was only really through Charlie that I saw that. And saw that actually it's okay to think or go through this journey and then say, well, actually, I'm not sure that's who I am. But it was tough, and I can see why it is still tough. There's a big debate in Scottish, if you're on Scottish social media or politics, the transgender issue is massive, and it can dominate at times. Because I think women are afraid of their, you know, earlier you asked me about misogyny and things like that. So if you've got women really fighting for their sex-based rights and have done for years, and then but it's a false narrative to be worried about transgender people becoming a woman so that they can see you in the River Island changing room. That's just not how it is. But some of these more far-right groups have played into that. And they really have. It's in America, it's here, and it's becoming and a lot of the organisations like Stonewall, LGBT Youth Scotland, Equality Network, they've been getting hammered on social media and in the media, you know, saying that people giving them death threats. The young guys at Thai are two of the big Celtic fans as well, two of the nicest, most down-to-earth, hard-working guys in the world who just want to change lives and are getting death threats. And I'm just like, this is why we're not, you asked earlier about equality, we're not quite where we need to be, that people don't, because really the thing is you shouldn't care. If somebody wants to live their life as a woman or wants to transition into a woman, it has no effect in your life. And until we get to a place where people really believe it, then we're not where we need to be. Not yet.
You know, when you look at that journey,
yeah,
I see it almost as educational.
Yeah.
Because you start to think, well, what emotions are you feeling? What are you going through as a parent? And what's your child going through? So I think that if you go public on it, as you did, then surely you're educating people like me who are quite ignorant to it.
Well, I think the difficult thing was some people saw it almost like I'd made a huge mistake because I'm exposing, and I get why they thought that. I'm not then, I would probably have been dead hurt. What Charlie wanted to do was educate people. He didn't belong in any particular group and felt like he belonged to Thai. So he put out this wee message of support. It was his idea, and I sat at that time with him to make this decision and do the support. And we did. We didn't expect it to blow up the way it is. What's been good about it is we can talk to parents. You know, we've been on media shows and radio, not so much recently, talking about it. And whether that's giving parents support, because it is a big shock. You know, it's actually all right to say, well, actually, I thought I was going to take my son to the football, and because you're allowed to grieve what is not going to be. You know, you're still allowed to say, well, actually, that's not to say that parents don't accept the new, but it's okay to mourn what would pass. And I felt like I was able to give that to parents, and our life has changed because Charlie never went back to Wesley. He realised that something changed inherently, and it was just a journey. But what I would say is, I suppose if I could to parents, worry less about it. Because for me, at first I was like, oh my God, like he's going to get bullied and he will be doing self-harm forever. But see, when I started to just listen to him and just take a wee step back and use the GP and use the services, there are services available, and I know it's difficult, then I felt like he was more relaxed, he was more able to come and discuss these things. But there is education to be done for parents, you know. There are a lot of parents out there still, and I think some of it is bigotry. There is no two ways about it. I had a young guy during COVID was put out because he came out as gay, he's Catholic parents, nowhere to live. That still happens, and it still happens more frequently. And the other side of the scale, sometimes parents want to be supportive, but they're afraid. They're afraid their child will get bullied. They're afraid they'll not be happy. And we're just changing these attitudes, but there's great organisations who are so much better than me, who are tackling it, and change is coming, and young people like and myself, and we do a lot of work with the trans community just because I know how difficult it is to be a trans woman and want to get your hair done. They go into barber shops and they won't do it. They go into hairdressers and like, oh, we don't do men, and we just have decided in our wee place. And my girls have never once said, I'm not doing that. I'm not. When I gave them the tools and said, look, if you've got questions, ask me. That's all it took, and they don't bother. But definitely with the new generations coming through, there is more acceptance. There's still work to be done though. To
get it to the norm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
To get it to the norm. Yeah. And my partner was saying that his son, who's only 10, was said, you know, he was out with friends and he went, oh, he's a wee poof. And he nearly killed him. And he said, it's like calling somebody a wee idiot or a wee, and he's like, he doesn't even know what that is. He doesn't know what a poof is. But he said, I'm still so angry that you used the word. And I said, well, that's why we're still like, and everything else we've discussed, you know, sectarianism, racism, misogyny, we just have work to do. But that doesn't mean to say it's all bleak. You know, I think that's why I want to kind of say that my girls and girls that work for me and people that I love, they are trying to learn and be accepting. So it's not all a bleak picture, and change is good.
Absolutely, and we can learn from our kids.
Yeah,
big message.
Absolutely.
You want another dish? Final one?
Final dish.
Ready for it?
Yeah, is it?
You can keep that as well. You ready for this?
Yes, I'm excited.
Final dish.
I'm nervous. Oh, it's something battered again.
But what could it be?
Oh, I know. I know. It's not a jobby, is it? No, it's a marshmallow.
Oh, the Scottish word's coming out.
Oh.
Have you ever tasted one of these? Right, brilliant. So we're going to get the reaction. We're going to get the reaction here.
It's crispy on the outside. It's like a greasy caramel shortcake, like a kind of biscuity base.
Yeah.
That's it. It was so greasy.
It is like a pudding.
It's the oil. When you take oil in fish, you don't seem to notice it. I can taste the oil.
So, what's your verdict?
I quite like it.
It's all right.
I'm like, I could put custard.
Why is this something in Scotland? Why Scotland? Would we get a Mars bar and put it in a fryer?
Well, I think people would slag us, but I think we're adventurous. Do you not think so? Scottish folk are like, that's a Mars bar, we'll put it in batter. People would do anything in Scotland once if you bet them. I was just saying to you before we started this interview, I will eat all of it because I wouldn't want to go home redneck and be like, oh, you didn't eat that. So if you tell Scottish people to do something, we're so sticky.
It is good though. Surprisingly good.
Very tasty, but I don't think I could have it every day. But maybe as a wee treat.
Just when you're coming to Dalkeith.
Is this a lot? Like, did you have to get this made, or is
we
this?
We did. We did. Aye. There's places that do them all year round. Other ones by request.
But do you not think Scottish people are good at embracing like new things as well? So it's not like they tried it once and everybody was like, "Oh, that's terrible." Everybody ate it. Like everyone's like, "Oh, I'll give that a go." The only thing they didn't embrace was the lower sugar content of the iron, but everything else, like, oh, we'll eat a bash.
That's right. And apparently toffee crisp's pretty good battered as well, Rosa, so you could try that next time.
You could batter anything really, couldn't you?
You could. Now, let's talk about online abuse.
Yeah.
We've touched on it a wee bit. It's a massive problem now.
Yeah, it is. And not just across celebrity, not just across high schools. You know, you guys are doing what you're doing. You're out there speaking to people publicly about whatever it is that you believe in, whether it's football or religion or whatever, and you just have to disagree with someone and then they're back at you. I think what we're not so good at doing, you know, my mum used to always say to me, you're not responsible for other people. You're only responsible for yourself and how you react to it. And what I've got better, when I was first in politics, when folk were abusive to me and it was bad, I would die. I would not be able to speak for 2 days. I couldn't communicate with my friend. I had this very public row with J.K. Rowling, and it got so bad that she was giving it like, oh, she's a Westboro Baptist right wing. All I had said was my Waynes will not be reading Harry Potter anymore. It was something to do with like a cheeky, it was a joke because my Waynes would put a bolt. But I had made this comment that J.K. Rowling wouldn't be allowed in our house, and actually even more so now because she's a bit of a transphobe. But at the time it was a joke. A journalist found it, retweeted it and was like, oh, terrible scenes, SNP councillor denies literature to children. So then J.K. Rowling saw it and she was like, and she has got like an army of buzzards, like I'm not even joking. If she decides that you've done something that annoys her, she's going to retweet it in millions, and I mean like from all over the world. At that point it nearly killed me. I was like, oh my God, like J.K. Rowling's like raging at me, the kids were mortified. But now I'm different. You know, I've changed, so this is about 5 years later, and when I get things like death threats or people talking about my lips, or I'm much more able to go, oh, fuck off, like, fuck off, it's just a faceless person on the internet. But I've had to learn that. That's a learned thing for me, and I've got amazing people in my life who can say, don't what you're reading that for, that's a load of crap. There will be people out there with poor mental health who will believe anything and still not be able to cope, you know, that it could be really devastating to their life, and I think that's the problem. I also think that social media platforms don't do enough about it, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I totally agree. Do you think we'll get to a point where we also need to educate kids and how to deal with that kind of abuse? Because it's very difficult if you're looking at your phone and this constant drip of notifications of hatred.
All the time.
Right, and basically it's difficult to ignore it, so you keep going back in for more. Do you think we should introduce that into the curriculum? I mean, it sounds bizarre, but it's part of life.
I think that's absolutely, it's a good, well, there's loads of things I think should be in the curriculum, you know, like I do think money management, voter registration, mental health awareness, and I don't just mean wishy-washy stuff, I mean like how do you cope with if this happens to you? And social media is a massive part of all of our lives. Even inadvertently, even if you decide to take yourself off of social media, you're out for a drink with somebody you've not seen for a while. Oh, did you see on Facebook? Did you see on Twitter? Did you see Instagram? Did you see? And that's how we communicate what we saw. But also our news, everything, a lot of what we see when it comes to current affairs, politics, money, comes through social media. So if we're going to let our children use it when they grow up or they're age appropriate, we need to tell them how to handle what comes with that. We need to teach them the skills. I mean, it is right, we should be educating kids on how we don't speak to people, but unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to be in a place where people don't say something that will hurt. Sometimes it's not even on purpose. Sometimes people say things to me on social media, and I don't actually think they're trying to be horrible, but I take it really, really personally. So it's about educating our kids on, sometimes though, do you know what I have found? See, just last week, some guy who's in the Yes movement, he was giving me pelters. He was just like constantly like, I don't like this, and I don't like how you dress, and And I just was, and I work for an MSP, so I'm usually pretty conscious, and I just eventually tweeted him saying, please fuck off, like just fuck her off. And I'm not even joking, about 20 other women who are elected as councillors or they're working up in Aberdeen as MSPs or whatever, all messaged me going, oh my God, he harasses me all the time. When I tweeted him that, he just deleted his account. He just deleted it, and that's him. And what I realised was, actually, it's all right. See, elected members and people like Nicolas, Sturgeon and Hamza Youssef and footballers, they're so scared to rock any boat that they just accept, they don't accept it. It must be awful. But they don't say, who do you think you're talking to? Like, who do you think you're talking to? Whereas I've now got to a place, so after I tweeted that, there was the odd person going, like emailing James, like, oh my God, she's sworn on Twitter. But see, James is amazing to work for. So then James, if somebody tweeted James saying, have you seen what ROSA ZAMBONINI, they called me something like, well, it was another guy, and he called me a bimbo or something. I said, well, at least it's better than being a dick, right? So that was my mature way of handling it, because he's been hassling me for ages. He's like, I'm going to email your boss to complain about you, and my boss tweets, he saw it, and he tweeted him saying, my only problem with her tweet is that she didn't call you a dick sooner. Leave her alone. So I'm so lucky to actually work for this guy who sometimes gets it wrong. See, when it comes to, sometimes he does, and you know, we don't always agree. You'll see him a lot. He's really involved with the Scottish football and strict liability. But he'll say to me, call them out in it. And actually that's what I've said, that if I'm a counsellor, I will be on to, if somebody's telling me something that's racist or homophobic, I am going to tell them to fuck off, because that's what they understand. And if that's what they're going to come at me at, that's how children speak to, you know, their friends in the playground. I get that, and I know that that's not always appropriate, but see, sometimes it's all you've got in your armour is to say, sometimes it's nicer to say, please leave me alone, but sometimes you just need to say that's enough. And actually, I'm better because, you know, you're saying we always go back for more. A couple of weeks ago, a certain football club annoyed me with their behaviour of their fans. It'd be hard to work out who. But I was annoyed. Actually, I felt good for Rangers. They had this massive achievement, a great season. You know, they were good to watch at times. Don't be sad. They were a good season.
I'm holding it back.
Hold it in. And I felt for, you know, people like my partner and his kids and other people who really are decent people and put their money in. And what I couldn't understand was the club not calling out the ones that were wasting it. Like Gerrard does a massive achievement for their own manager. Nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking. So anyway, I happened to tweet something that went pretty viral. Rangers fans were not happy. It totally blew up. I just deleted the app. I just locked my account and deleted the app for 2 weeks. And actually, I was able to take myself, and that's a skill that I've learned, because if you take yourself out of it, it's not existing.
Can I touch you?
Yeah, it's not exist. It doesn't exist. You don't know them. They can't phone you up. They can't send you a text. It doesn't exist. So I took myself off. What I recognised is that Twitter moves, and it's probably the worst for me personally. Other people get it in Facebook and Instagram. It moves in cycles. So within 24 to 48 hours, there would be the next big issue, whether it's in Scottish football, like Celtic being in Dubai, that was there, and then the next week it was something else, and then it was a party with the young Rangers players. So I take myself off for 48 hours or 2 weeks, and then I know by the time I go back, nobody's talking about me anymore or what. And sometimes I do make mistakes. Sometimes I say things and I think, you should have expected a wee bit of a backlash there, because I've got a responsibility. But yeah, it's definitely an issue. And, you know, when Caroline Flack died, everyone's like, me too, be kind and take care of people. And then I see young girls, and they're vicious to each other on Instagram. They're so horrendous, not so much to each other's faces, but, you know, they'll be like sharing each other's and screenshotting it, and look at her. And then I can say, actually, there is work to be done, but we live in a competitive kind of environment, and social media is, it's funny though, because I think Facebook, I always say, Facebook is for my ma. That's where I see her. My mum is 74 and only got Facebook 2 years ago, and is addicted and has lots of male friends on it from her Friends of Motherwell page. So it's where they share like their high school stories. So she knows the whole of Motherwell through Facebook. So I go on there if it's something I want her to see, like if I'm putting up, kids did really well in school, so I want her to think she's doing a good job as a mother. So I put it on Facebook. If I want to look fashionable or cool or do fashiony stuff, I do it on Instagram, and I keep the politics to Twitter. And I think that's what I've been able to do to handle it as well. You know, I kind of compartmentalise them instead of just giving my whole life over to social media. But that was a learned experience, because I used to just put it all out there. And then I had no control.
Well, what I've learned from today is if I'm getting hassled, I can just tell them to fuck off.
Right, exactly. Just tell them fuck off. And actually, it's all right. I'm sorry you disagree with me, mate, but because there's nothing worse, especially with football. You go on and have an opinion, it can be a joke. So I had a tweet went viral early in the year. It was on all these Scottish Parter tweet, and it was a total joke. Marella said that haircut, and it was like shaved down there. And I said, this is what happens when your Nicolas Sturgeon puts you in lockdown during your haircut. But Rangers fans were so fucking angry about it. They were like, and it was funny. It was meant to be funny. And they were so angry. And then eventually I was just like this. I was like batting them off like that, because I was like, it's just a joke, lads. Like, go and enjoy your big 55 title. It's coming. Just enjoy it. But I think in football is definitely, I see it so much, and they fight with each other. Like, say on Twitter, you can just see one person putting something up. Do you ever do it when you're on your podcast? Do you ever put something out there that you know is going to get a reaction?
From time to time, yeah. I've been known to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's what we do. So just take yourself off it, or to fuck off like that. Just, and actually, it's all right to say that.
I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that advice.
Because I think we always worry if we take constituents or viewers or people who are subscribing, if we say something like that, that we'll lose a constituent, James will lose a vote, I'll lose a Twitter follower. But you know what? The respect you get from people who say, well done, mate, like, that's really decent, because I wasn't wanting to see that, I wasn't wanting to hear that, I don't want to listen to that. And then you've actually said, no, well, I'm not listening to it either. I would love it if sometimes, like, I listen to Super Scoreboard because I'm on the West Coast, and people like Hugh Keevins, and I sometimes think, you don't need to take that. And they're actually quite good at saying, right, I'm hanging up on you. That's what we should be doing. If it's not nice, if it's not important, if it's not kind, just fucking hang up on them.
I like it. I like it.
That's
how have you enjoyed your
vote
Tartan Tastebuds experience?
I've loved it. Thank you so much for having me. I talk a lot, don't I?
I've enjoyed it.
But a lot.
Thanks for coming along.
Oh, thank you very much.
Rosa Zambonini.
Thank you.